Welcome Algebra 1, this is factoring quadratic expressions. Let's begin. So this unit is going to have 4 different videos, 2 this week, 2 later on. First one's on factoring quadratic expressions. There's about a dozen different ways to factor quadratic expressions, and every teacher might teach you a different way. I'm going to teach you 2 different ways. So one if you like the FOIL method, and one if you like doing the box method in the last unit. So you may use one of these, or you can use something else. I don't care. I just want you to get the correct answer. So use whatever method works for you. So this first one, if you like FOIL, I'm going to call this mental math. So I have a bunch of quadratic expressions here, and in red I have these answers. You might notice a few things if you look at the pattern going on here. Notice that the numbers on the right of each binomial, the last numbers, multiply to the right-hand side of each quadratic expression. 6 times negative 10 is negative 60. 9 times 8 is 72. You might also notice that binomials add to the middle term. So these numbers, 6 minus 10 adds to negative 4. 9 plus 8 is 17. So they're actually adding to the middle term. And you might notice that the right term here, these all have a coefficient of 1. So a few neat things to note. And we use that information to factor. So if I want to actually factor using mental math, this is your steps. First you want to create binomials. So basically just 2 empty binomials. Binomials would have 2 terms, so just create empty parentheses. Now, the left terms in each parenthesis must multiply to the left term of the quadratic expression. So if we were doing FOIL, this is like the left terms mean the first terms. I could have said the first terms. So the 2 terms, their first terms, must multiply to x squared, and that's going to be x times x. So x times x, and that's going to be your first terms. Now the right terms must multiply to the right term of the quadratic expression. When I say right terms, that's like the L, the last in FOIL. So they must multiply to negative 60 in this case. This was x squared. So negative 60, you got to guess 2 numbers that multiply to negative 60. In this case, I'm going to guess negative 10, so it'll be x minus 10, and x, I'm going to guess negative 10 times positive 6. Because negative 10 times positive 6 is negative 60. Now, the last step for this, the outer plus the inner must add to the middle term of the quadratic expression. So this is like the O and I in FOIL. Outer and the inner. So the inners, negative 10 times x multiplies to negative 10x. And the outers, x times 6 is positive 6x. And if you add those up, negative 10 plus 6 is going to add up to negative 4x. And that does match up with the factor up here, the middle term of the quadratic expression. Because that matches, I know my factored form is right exactly what I wrote. So it's x minus 10 times x plus 6. And that's the factored form. Now, what if you guessed wrong? So if it doesn't work, you just have to keep guessing and testing until you get it right. So for example, if I guessed that negative 60, I tried negative 30 times 2, because that's negative 60. Well, if you tried to add up the outers and the inners, negative 30x, and this would be positive 2x, but that adds up to negative 28x. That doesn't work. So what you have to do is you have to try different numbers. So you might not get it the first time. That's okay. You say, oh, got to erase those, and you would try different ones, and eventually you would get to the correct answer, negative 10 and positive 6. Just have to keep trying till you get it right. All right, so let's try a different one to factor. I know this is not just x squared, it's 5x squared, but you're still following the same process here. So I want you to create your empty binomials. The left terms, so the first terms, must multiply to the first term of the quadratic expression. So 5x squared. I'm going to guess one of these is 5x and one of these just x. Because 5 is a prime number, so it has to be 5 times 1. So that's the first one. Okay, the right terms must multiply, so the last terms must multiply to this right term up here. You have to multiply to positive 10. But because this is a negative in the middle, these 2 signs must also be negative, because we can do a negative times a negative is a positive. So I'm going to guess 2 numbers here. I'm going to guess, let's say, 5 times 2, because negative 5 times negative 2 is positive 10. All right, so now I'm going to check, see if they add to the middle. Negative 5 times x is negative 5x. 5 times negative 2 is negative 10x. If we add those up, that's negative 15x. And that does not work, because that does not match my negative 27. So I have to erase everything. And I'm going to try different values, this 5 and 2. Well, I could try different ones, but maybe I'm just going to swap the places. I'll put the 5 there and 2 there. Now let's see what happens. You get negative 2x, and for these ones I get negative 25x, and if you add those up, that's negative 27x, and that does match. So my final answer is this binomial right here. I'll rewrite it as 5x minus 2 times x minus 5. So guess and test to make it work. Last one, let's do one more. So multiplying to 4x squared, well, it could be 2x and a 2x, so let's try that first. All right. And then the right-hand sides have to multiply negative 4, so I don't know, I'll try negative 4 times positive 1. And if I do that, what happens? Well, negative 4 times 2 is negative 8x, and 2 times 1 is positive 2x. That adds up to negative 6x. That doesn't work because I want 15x. So you got to keep trying different numbers. And I think as you do this more, you'll start seeing a better pattern here. These get kind of difficult. This is actually going to be a 4x and an x instead of 2 and 2. And multiplying negative 4, I'm going to try positive 4 here and negative 1 here. So what happens, I get negative 1 times x is negative 1x, and 4 times 4 is going to be positive 16x, and those do add up to 15x, which matches. So my final answer is 4x minus 1 times x plus 4. It takes a lot of guessing and testing. All right, their second method, I'm going to call it the x and box method, or the box method. So if you like doing that, and you like drawing the shapes, you'll like this method. So the first thing I want you to do is create a big X. And now in that X, I want you to multiply the left and right numbers and put them on the top. So this is like a 1x squared, the left and right coefficients. 1 times negative 60 will be negative 60 on top. And then put the middle number on the bottom. So negative 4 on bottom. On the left and right of the X, you're going to pick two numbers that add to the bottom, and they must multiply to the top. So I have to have two numbers that add to negative 4, multiply to negative 60. Start guessing numbers that multiply negative 60, and then figure out which ones add to negative 4. And if you play around with that, you'll find out your two numbers are negative 10 and positive 6, because those add up to negative 4 and multiply to negative 60. All right, now that I have these two numbers in left and right, these are the key points. I'm going to create this box here, so a 2 by 2 box. On the top left corner, I want you to put the left term of the expression, so just put an x squared. On the bottom right corner, I want you to put the right term of the expression, so negative 60. And in these two boxes, I want you to put the left and the right. So the left, negative 10, and make this negative 10x, and the right's going to be positive 6x. Basically what we're doing is we're splitting this negative 4 into two different things, negative 10x and then positive 6x. So I create my box. Now I want you to factor out the columns and rows. So factoring out this way, 6x and negative 60, the greatest common factor is positive 6. Factoring out right here, the greatest common factor of x squared and 10x is x. Factoring out this way, the greatest common factor is x. And factoring out this way, the greatest common factor is negative 10. So our two factors are the column and row right here, or x minus 10 times x plus 6. And that is the correct answer. All right, let's try a different example. So even though we have a 5x squared, it's still going to be very similar. On the top, you multiply the left times the right number. So 5 times 10 is 50. And on the bottom, we just drop down the negative 27. So two numbers that multiply the top and add to the bottom are going to be positive, or nope, they must add to negative 27 and multiply to a positive, so they must both be negative. It's going to be 25 and 2. So those add to negative 27 and multiply to 50. All right, now I'm going to create that box. I'm going to put that 5x squared. I'm going to put that 5x squared in the top left of this box, so 5x squared. And put the positive 10 on the bottom right. Now in these two, I'm splitting up the two middle left and right of my x. So I'm going to put negative 25x and negative 2x. And then I'm going to factor. So the greatest common factor of this column right here is going to be, we're going to put it negative 2. And then this factor is going to be 5x. Greatest common factor this way is going to be just x. And this one's going to be negative 5. So my final answer for my factors are going to be x minus 5 times 5x minus 2. And that's your answer. Try one more. So it still works for this. We're going to multiply on the top. 4 times negative 4 is going to be negative 16. And positive 15 on the bottom. The two numbers that multiply negative 16 add to 15 are going to be negative or positive 16 and negative 1. So create my box again. 4x squared on the top left, negative 4 on the bottom, plus 16x here, and I'll do negative 1x down here. factoring out greatest common factor, this will be positive 4, and this one will be x, and this one will be 4x, and this one will be a negative 1. So my two factors are 4x minus 1 times x plus 4. So those are the two methods. Either way works. Let's try some examples. Pause the video. Alright, I'm going to do it the FOIL method, or the mental math. So I want two numbers that multiply to positive 63 and add to negative 16x. I know this is going to be x and x. So 63 is going to be, I'm going to try 7. I know it's 7 times 9. And since this is negative, I'm guessing they're both got to be negative. Now I got to check that they add up to negative 16x. It'll be negative 9x, and this will be negative 7x, and those do add to negative 16x. So this is my correct answer. Let's try a different one. Alright, so the first thing you can do in this case, I didn't do an example like this, is you can factor out the greatest common factor. From everything, you can factor out 2. So you're left with 2 times b squared plus 16b plus 63. Alright, now I can just factor this trinomial here, ignore the 2 for now. So factoring this, I'll do the box method. I'll make the x first. It'll be b squared times 63. You're ignoring the 2 for now. So it'll be 63 on top and 16 on bottom. Two numbers that multiply the top and add to the bottom are positive 7 and positive 9. So the factored form of that, if I create my box, perfectly straight, I'm going to put a b squared here, a 63 down here, a 9x here, and a 7x here. So, oh, not x's, they're b's. 7b. So factoring out this way, you're going to get a 9, positive 9. Factoring out this, you get b. Factoring out this way, you get a b. And factoring out this, you get plus 7. So your factored form is going to forget the 2 times b plus 7 times b plus 9. And that's your answer. Next one. Alright, I'm going to do the x again. So 4 times 3 is going to be 12 on top and negative 13 on bottom. My two numbers are going to be negative 12 and negative 1. So if I create that box, I'm going to put 4x squared here and 3 here and negative 12x here and negative 1x here. So factoring out greatest common factor, I'm going to do a negative 1 here, do a 4x here. I'm going to do an x here and negative 3 here. So my factored form is 4x minus 1 times x minus 3. That's it.